So today, we're going to be going over how not to be a MacBook repair shop. As I said in my last video, I do not mind if you are an end user and you mess something up. That is your right, it's your product. However, if you are a repair shop, you do not have the right to sodomize a MacBook and then give it back to your customer. This is a repair shop that would like to get discounted repairs from us that I'm likely not going to be working with in the future. I'm going to be going over every single thing that was done to this poor little MacBook. This poor, sad, innocent little MacBook that did not have to happen to it in this video, and you tell me what you think. First things first, this was a no backlight repair that was very simple. This is not a properly soldered LCD connector. I can move the pins. If I move along here with my tweezers, what the fuck is this? What is this? What do you call this? You should tap each pin on the LCD connector to see that it's actually soldered before you give it back to a customer. And you should learn how to do this on donor boards before you do it on customer machines that cost over $1,000. This is not right. Secondly, this is not the LCD connector for this machine. This LCD connector is for a 2009 through 2011 A1278 model, which is the MacBook Pro. It is not for a 2013 MacBook Air. The 2013 MacBook Air is supposed to have a connector that looks like this. Do you see the difference? 2013 MacBook Air, 2011 MacBook Pro. 2013 MacBook Air, 2011 MacBook Pro. This connector is not even soldered onto the board. It is not the connector for this machine, and it should be apparent to anybody with eyes that this will not work properly. Next up, replacing a fuse when the fuse is not the problem. The fuse was never the issue. As I've gone over in a video that when I do the recorded version of this, I will link to in the cards up here, the MacBook Air backlight fuse never blows. That's not your problem. Something else is your problem. There's no need to replace a fuse that was not blown. However, if you're going to replace a fuse for your customer, for fuck's sake, solder it onto the board better than this. My soldering is complete and utter garbage, and if you're a normal follower of the channel, let's face it, you can tell that I'm not exactly the best when it comes to fitting things into place. A little bit of flux, a little bit of hot air, and that's going to flow right into place with surface tension. There's no excuse, there is no rhyme or reason for this to be soldered onto the board this way. Thirdly, this was not even the issue with the motherboard. The issue with the motherboard is that the feedback via is blown. The fuse is not the issue. I am sick and tired of stores that say, we want to send this in for a repair for backlight, but it's only going to be like 20 bucks if all you need is the fuse. No, it's not the fuse. This is not a backlight fuse. Stop saying that the fuse is the thing that needs to be fixed if you are not qualified to say what it is that is wrong with the device. If you don't know what it is, just say, I would like to pay you to fix it. Do not ask for some discount after you butcher the board to only replace the fuse when the issue is with the backlight feedback area. So if I go over here, this is the feedback circuit. The feedback circuit is where the chip that makes the backlight is going to see what is being created at output. So this over here is backlight output, and backlight output travels through this V in the board called XW7720, and that is going to then go to ball A5 of the LED driver, and that's going to allow the LED driver to see what it's creating. And as you can see here, the pathway in the board for that is blown and destroyed. And it's not made any better by the fact that you probably kept turning it on after improperly replacing the backlight fuse and the connector. Fourth thing, and the most important one of them all, because I'm sick and tired of people doing this and destroying MacBook Airs with it, there's one store a year ago that actually had the gall to tell me that they were intending to tell their customer that they needed to pay for a new board after they destroyed it doing this. Do not long screw damage a MacBook. If you long screw damage an iPhone, that's wrong, but I understand how it occurs. I do not see how people are so thick-headed that they can long screw damage a MacBook. Don't long screw damage your MacBook. This is not the screw that goes in this hole. See this over here? This screw is not designed for this hole. This screw is not the screw that will fit. And you can see that the screw is all scratched on top from somebody screwing as hard as they can to try to make it fit when it doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, just stop shoving it in. There needs to be a fucking hashtag #MeToo for MacBooks. I'm serious. This little screw hole did not consent to getting a screw that was twice as big to fit in its hole. Look at this. Look at this screw hole. Look at this sodomized screw hole. Look at this. On the bottom of this screw hole, look at this. This is disgusting. There's no excuse for this. Look at this. Look at the bottom of that screw hole. It's fucking sodomized. You can see that there's a layer of the board that's just scratched off. See in here? Do you see inside, all the way deep inside that screw hole? I'm going to zoom in so that you can see. Look at that. Just digging into the board. Do not screw the board if the board does not wish to be screwed. If the board wishes to be screwed in that hole, it will consent by having a screw that is the proper size for that hole. Do not put a screw that is 3 times as long for that hole into that hole. And if you are screwing that screw into the hole and you feel that there's resistance, don't go and keep screwing into the hole. Don't do that in your relationships. Don't do that in your marriages. Don't do that on the dates. And definitely don't do it to the MacBook. It's wrong in all areas of life. Now, this is lucky because this did not go too far down in the layers. However, what a lot of people will do, they will do that to the CPU screws. So if we take a look at where the CPU screws are on this MacBook, you'll see that these are really short. And this place actually managed to get this right and put the proper screws in that hole. These screws are super short. See this? If you put the wrong screw in that hole, the CPU is done for, and there's not a lot that we can really do for you there because you can't just remove the screw grommet like you can on an iPhone because you need those screws to be there for the heatsink to be in place or else the machine is going to overheat. Now, that being said, let's fix the sodomy on this board and hopefully we can get it to work again. But for fuck's sake, if you are a licensed repair business, if you have a sign that says, we professionally repair devices, give us your $1,200 devices, trust us with your data, put the proper connector on the board. Do not long screw the board if it did not consent to being long screwed. Put the fuse on properly, and if the fuse is not the problem, which it never is, then focus on what actually is the problem, such as the feedback via that looks like this. There's no excuse to ignore this big pile of green stuff. You do not need to understand what a feedback circuit is. You don't have to understand what a DC to DC boost circuit is. You don't have to know about electrons and coulombs and Ohm's law or any of that stuff. When you look at this, there is a green pile of what looks like Shrek shit on the board. When you see what looks like Shrek shit, you fix it, you clean it, you reattach things, and that's it. I'm not asking a lot here. I'm just saying that if you do this professionally, do not do this anymore. I'm telling you, I'm going to start doing this. If I see that you put the long screw in the short hole and you fucked up the CPU, I'm not just going to tell you anymore. From now on, when I get devices in from other repair shops where the long screw is in the CPU hole, I'm live streaming them to YouTube and I'm putting their name in the title because I'm sick and tired of this. Have I messed up a lot of stuff? Absolutely. I have messed up. I have destroyed things. I have been an idiot. You have seen me being an idiot on this channel many, many times. I am not above reproach. I am dumb. I am not college educated. I screw things up. I'm a human. But when I screw things up, I do not hold the customer accountable for it. I fix what I messed up. And when I'm experimenting on something new, I experiment on my new stuff, not customers' new stuff. If I want to figure out how to work on the latest, newest thing or how to solder some new connector, I buy myself a donor board and practice on that. If I'm working on a customer device, I'm going to put a connector on that customer device that actually matches what they brought in. All right, so now we put a heat shield over the clutch cover so it doesn't get burned. Okay, looking nice. It's just a little MacBook. This little MacBook just wants to be a happy little MacBook. Just wants to be free. So we're going to put some nice little alcohol on this, and we're just going to clean up all that stuff from the original connector soldering, like so. Ah, look at that. Nice and shiny. It's a happy little board. Good little board. Good little board. Oh, the alcohol is nice and sucked up. Beautiful. It's gonna be great. Okay, gonna get our connector put like so. Oh, isn't that a nice little connector? I had to go to the sales guy's wedding. That was pretty fun. I'm happy for the salesman. So a lot of people took the day off so that they could go to the wedding. So a little understaffed. Now we're just going to hold the connector down. And solder it to the board. Look at that. Beautiful solder joints, made nice and easy. Every single one of those pins on the board has a nice little bit of solder on it. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Each one has a nice little bump on it, evenly sized as the one next to it. That's a happy little connector on a happy little board. That's the way it should look. Fitter, happier, more productive. Fitter, happier, more productive. Fitter, happier, more productive. Not thinking too much. Fitter, happier, more productive. Okay. Fitter, happier, more productive. Fitter, happier, more productive. Not thinking too much. That's beautiful. Wow, look at how beautiful this little connector is. Isn't it happy to be on this board now? Alright, next up on our agenda is going to be this little feedback via. Remember the feedback via that allows the backlight driver to check backlight output? That looks a little blown on this board, but that's no problem for us. Just a little scrape back and forth, back and forth. We're going to solder straight to that little nub. Yeah, you see the nub? See the nub? Let's zoom in on the nub a little bit, folks. You gotta see the nub. Alright, we've got a decent amount of solder on that nub. Now we're just going to add some fresh leaded solder to the diode where backlight output is, and we're going to run a little wire there. Now I'm hoping that after we run the wire that's going to fix our problem. It would really be terrible if I had to take everything out and also replace the LED driver on the other side of the board. Because if it did enough to burn through the V on the top of the board, chances are it could have also blown out the LED driver. That's always a risk. Alright, next up, that little fuse is a pathetic joke. We're not going to keep that fuse on the board. That's terrible. Boomed off with a micro pencil. Okay, we're going to wick each side, add solder to one. That'll allow me to easily slide in my fuse. And we get the other side of our fuse. Add a little bit of flux since that's just too much. Not a great joint. We're going to make that a nice joint. We don't want a not nice joint to leave here. So we're going to hold it down with the tweezer on one side, on the top, and run over it with the iron on the other. There you go. Now, we're going to see if this winds up needing a new LED driver or not, or if this suffices. I'm hoping that this suffices to fix our problem. If it does, then this will be a happy little board. Even though it was touched by a meanie. Who was mean to you, little board? You tell me. Tell me who was mean to you. Who hurt you, little MacBook? And as you can see, we have a backlight on this MacBook. See that? That's an Apple logo. And now, this is a nice little board. We're going to take that board out, ultrasonically clean it just to get rid of all the flux so it looks nice and good and professional when it's returned to the client. But that's it for this. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. If you're going to sodomize a MacBook, it had better be your own and not a board that somebody else paid a lot of money for. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something.